Well, I don't know that I've probably shared this story like in private conversations, but I don't know that I've shared it in the public forum. So I figured we'd just start. And one of the things when I was in a mastermind back in 2015, 2016 with you, you called it the inner circle, and this was 12, 13, 14 entrepreneurs from all around the country. I brought you this problem. And it was, hey, I can't get all these successful financial advisors to all show up in the same place at the same time. We were actually doing Zoom conversations just like we are now. So it was kind of a virtual mastermind. And you gave me a little nudge and you said, hey, well, why don't you just make it a podcast? And what it really unlocked in me, there's a Ryan Holiday book, The Obstacle is the Way, kind of stoic philosophy. And what happened was that obstacle at that time, because I had to figure out a different, back, I wasn't the first guy to podcasting, but that was definitely an earlier phase of podcasting before I think everybody had a podcast. But with me being in the right circle and you giving me a little nudge, that conversation really kicked off the Elite Advisor Blueprint, which was my prior podcast in a prior life, and really unlocked all kinds of opportunities, incredible conversations, grew my network, brought a lot of value over years to a lot of the financial advisor community out there. And so I know that's a little bit of what you talk about in the new book, Mind Your Mindset, which is kind of examining your thinking and the obstacles sometimes you put in your own way. But I thought that could be a fun place just to kick off the conversation of how you've seen that play out in your own life, your own business, and just examining that thinking as you run into these obstacles that we all do in life.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, I'm so glad that you're podcasting again, because I've told you this before, and I literally don't say this to other podcast hosts. You're one of the best interviewers I've ever met. You ask such great questions, and it's a privilege to be on your show. So thank you.
Thank you.
I really think this book is kind of a prequel to everything else I've done, because it really does begin with your thinking. So just to tell a quick story, and I told this to your group, to the live event that you did recently in Austin, Texas. I started with this story, but it was back in the Great Recession. Eileen was my coach. And so in August of 2009, she came in for a full day of coaching with me, which was her pattern. She came in once a month for a full day. 75% of the time, I felt like with psychotherapy, tried to get inside of my head and change my thinking. The other 25% was, actual business coaching. So she sat down in her chair, big smile on her face. She said, so how did last month turn out? Meaning July of 2009. I said, not very good. She said, what? She said, when I was here last month, you were so confident that not only were you going to hit the budget, but you were going to exceed it. She said, well, what do you mean you didn't do well? I said, well, we missed the top line by about 10%. We lost money. And she went, wow, yeah, that's pretty different from what you told me you were going to do. And she said, why do you think that happened? And I said, well, like it was intuitively obvious to me, we're in the middle of a recession. And foot traffic at retail, where people buy books, and I was in the book publishing business, that's down across the board. Consumer confidence, all you have to do is look online and you can see that consumer confidence has been measured every year and every month for decades. And this is one of the lowest consumer confidence scores that we've ever had. So there's that. There's the recession. I said, in addition to that, I'm in the publishing industry, which is in the middle of this huge digital transition. And we don't know where it's going to go, from physical to Kindle. Customers are confused. We're confused. We're not sure. And then marketing. We're in the midst of social media. We really haven't figured out how to use social media to actually market stuff yet. But we know that traditional marketing is not working like it used to. People are distracted with social media. So I said, that's why we missed. And she listened to me for a minute. She was taking notes. She finished. And she said, okay, but what was it about your leadership that led to this result? And I was kind of taken back, a little bit offended. And I said, what do you mean? What was it about my leadership? It had nothing to do with my leadership. I just got done explaining to you the problem: recession, publishing industry, the state of marketing. And she said, okay, I get that. There's a recession going on. I understand the issues about your industry and all of that, but what was it about your leadership? I'm like, well, I don't even know where to go with this. I mean, I've explained the best I can why we ended up with this result. And she said, okay, well, let me ask it a different way, because clearly, I don't think she actually said these words, but clearly I wasn't getting it.
Right.
So she said, if you could go back 30 to 45 days, would you have done anything differently knowing what you know now? And I said, you bet. She said, well, like what? I said, well, I think I would have met with the sales team in a stand-up meeting every day just to know that we were pacing towards the target. So I would have known earlier that there was a problem. She said, okay, good. What else? I said, well, I think I would have gone on that call with the sales team to Walmart because, if I don't say so myself, I'm a really good salesperson. And I think that I could have got them to buy more product than the sales team did. And she said, okay, what else? So I gave her like 3 to 5 things. And then she said, she kind of smiled and she said, so what you're telling me is that it was about your leadership. And I was like, guilty as charged. But here's the issue and why we wrote this book. I think for a lot of people, they have a controlling narrative, a story that informs how they interpret the facts. And what we don't realize is that there's a difference between the facts and the story that we're telling about the facts. And that story can either be empowering or disempowering. And Brad, my story, the story I told myself where I was the victim, and the story where I had done the best I could, but it just didn't shake out, that was the story I was telling. But the problem was that made the problem out there. And what she was trying to do was to say, look, if the problem's out there, you got no control over it. Not a thing in the world you can do. You're basically toast. All you can do is just passively sit back and watch stuff happen to you. Or you can realize that you have agency and can actually do something about it. Now, the bad news is about her story was that it required that I accept responsibility for the results, which I did. Because I said to her, I said, you know what? You're right. This was my leadership. But the good news was, and the thing that got me excited, is that once I got kind of past the sting of owning it, I got the power back because I realized, I can do something different this month and next month and for the rest of my life. And all I have to do is change the story.